Welcome back. Now, any Leaving Cert students will probably be aware of yesterday's announcement that for the third year in a row, results will be available until early September rather than at the usual mid-August date.
So why is this the case and what will this mean for students across the country? Joining us now to explain everything is Irish Times columnist Brian Mooney. Brian, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello from the Four Seasons here in Monaghan. I'm at a meeting, so glad to talk to you this morning.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to chat to us about this very important matter because, of course, the news broke yesterday of the delay in the Leaving Cert results and, of course, the reaction has been pretty dismal, really, across the board for students.
Yeah, well, you see, I mean, we so much going on this year that's actually led to the fact that we won't now have results to the 2nd September, hopefully, obviously. We're talking about the fact that the students who maybe missed a paper because of COVID, we're talking about the fact that many teachers who used to correct in the past, some have retired, and we didn't need that many in last year because with the calculated grades, a lot of students just accepted their results, and in 2020 there was nobody doing it. So it's really been very difficult for the State Exams Commission to get teachers to apply for this work. It's obviously a voluntary activity, and along with the fact that they're also going to have to adjust the grades because Mr. Foley has promised that the grades will be in line with last year's because there's about 8,000 or 10,000 applicants from the last 2 years applying this year. So this year's students wanted equality of opportunity with those students. So for all of those reasons, they're going to be an awful lot longer processing the results, and therefore it won't be until the 2nd of September, Friday the 2nd of September, when they hope to be in a position to be able to issue them to students.
What did she mean by that, though, no lower in the aggregate? I mean, how did they go about doing that?
Well, this is it. I mean, if you think of the bell curve in statistics and that, obviously there's a bell curve from last year's results showing the pattern of results and from the previous year, etc. And when they actually correct the papers this year, that will create its own bell curve for the current year. And they will literally statistically, mathematically adjust that to move the bell curve up, presumably, to the level that last year's results were. And that basically means, as far as I can see mathematically, you just basically press a button and everybody's results goes up by 4% or 5%, etc. So that this year's students are not at a disadvantage to the results that were secured through the calculated grades last year.
Brian, a question just in terms about the teachers and the shortage. I had heard on News Talk, we were chatting about it, and Pat Kenny had addressed it saying that at the time, which is March, they didn't have, it was looking like they didn't have enough teachers to mark these papers. You know, the Leaving Cert has started, it's nearly finished, and they're still recruiting. So how have we got to this point, and why is there a shortage? Is it COVID, or is it just a lack of want?
I think that the culture of teachers spending the month of July, as I did in my youth, correcting diligently hundreds of scripts and then going back into a full year's teaching at the 22nd, 23rd of August when the schools come back nowadays. People have just said, you know what, it's not worth the candle. It's just, we're exhausted, particularly with COVID, emotionally and psychologically, we just want a break. And it's not part of your work. It's a voluntary thing that you apply for. And I know that they were struggling, 2013, 14, 15, 16, every year was getting progressively more difficult to get teachers to apply for this work. And then when you break it for 2 years and lots of people who might have done it retire or just get the sense that, God, this is great not having to do this, that now it's becoming almost impossible to get teachers to do this work. And yet the whole system, I wrote a piece in the Times a couple of weeks ago and said that if this doesn't work anymore, then where does that leave the whole system? Are we going to go back to the teachers having to do the correction within their own schools for their own students? Because somebody's got to correct these scripts. Yeah. And, if teachers are finding it less and less attractive, and I don't think it's the money, I just think it's the sheer, intensity of the work through the, lockdown for a complete month, with that level of responsibility. And obviously students can look at every single thing you do when they review their scripts, when they get their results to see whether they think they should have got 1 or 2 more marks to get a particular CAO course or whatever. So, you know, it's really, I really feel for them in the State Exams Commission, because they are recruiting today. They're still looking for people.
But Brian, we have to feel for the students as well, because of course this is going to have a knock-on effect to anybody who wishes to enter third level. There's going to be delays in many different routes and systems, never mind the accommodation. I mean, what about the disability access route, the higher education access route? What's going to happen with those students?
Well, you see, the problem is the results will come out hopefully on the 2nd of September. That's a Friday. The CAO offices will then have got them. Maybe they may have got them a day or so beforehand, but they would normally require up to 5 working days to turn that around, to make sure that the right people get the right courses offered. And that's a really, really important piece of work. So you're talking about possibly maybe, Wednesday, Thursday the following week for CAO offers. We're now back into the 6th or 7th of September. For a start, there's about 1,000 Irish students each year now accept degree courses in the Netherlands. And their cut-off date is the 1st of September. Now, they have really bent over backwards to facilitate Irish students in the last couple of years. But where does that leave any student going to European universities, where effectively the 1st of September is the date which they demand results by to make an offer? And then for our own students who are staying here at home, effectively, if they get an offer, say the following Wednesday, Thursday, we're talking about as you say, the accommodation is probably going to be complete, whatever's there. Second, third, and fourth year students may have swallowed up. Now, colleges can put aside accommodation on their campuses for first years, but in the commercial world outside, I'm sure landlords will just give the accommodation to whoever actually is looking for it, and the other students will have been looking for it weeks beforehand. So there's a real problem there in terms of processing the data of all of these Leaving Cert students, so that effectively we transfer them into the third level system in the early weeks of September.
Okay, Brian, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and I hope you have a lovely time, a lovely breakfast there at the Four Seasons. Thank you for getting up early for us.
So I'm sure they're going to look after me, Laura and Riley, now this morning. Thank you.
Talk to you again soon.